supposed to be governed by our elected representatives, not an unelected, unaccountable class of Mandarin bureaucrats. And that's, I believe, what's happening, and Trump rightly sees right through that. Next up, we've got a continued assault on our Constitution from the left, from activist judges. We've had a series of rulings constraining the core presidential powers of President Trump, rulings that I think are in opposite from what the Constitution allows federal judges to do. And on top of that, you have people who have unlimited and bottomless contempt for the American people. And to that end, I mean, listen to what I believe she's a communist. I know she's a terrorist supporter too. What Ilhan Omar says.
These people are just idiots. I really, I'm at the point where it's become really hard to have an intellectual debate with any of these people, because the level of stupidity that they are displaying every single day is frankly embarrassing, not just in Congress, but as Americans. And the fact that these people are allowed to say just the most ridiculous things tells you that the dumbing of the United States has arrived, because how else do we get a Trump presidency again?
I mean, you can see I can barely watch her. I mean, if I maybe I should have just kept my back to her the entire time in the video. It's just so painful to watch. But that's who she speaks for, or what she says is typical of the left. Not only do they object, but they don't want us to speak. They don't think we should be allowed to speak. And so the Supreme Court, thankfully, jumped in, or Chief Justice Roberts jumped in, pulled back one of the most egregious aspects of, or one of the most egregious rulings related to the president's powers. But we've had a series of rulings saying the president can't fire anyone, can't control spending, can't manage foreign policy. There was a ruling requiring the president of the United States to admit foreign nationals into the United States, so-called refugees. But that's completely at odds with the constitutional prerogatives of the president. So in response to that order by the judge, this is what I said. I tweeted out, "Judicial coup. Biden judge orders real Donald Trump," is Trump's handle, "to admit refugees into the United States." Then Elon Musk retweeted that tweet, or reposted. I guess they're no longer tweets because it's called X. "What is the point of having democratic elections if unelected activist judges can override the clear will of the people? Well, that's no democracy at all." And so between that and my tweet, there were 43 million views, because Musk has such a massive following. But Musk raises a fair point. This is about democracy in the traditional sense of the word. Yes, I know we're a constitutional republic, but when judges steal self-government, right, steal our liberty, our right to govern ourselves by pretending or acting as if they're the president or the legislature, that upends democracy in a core way. And so these cases are going to wind their way through the courts, and I'm hoping they are shut down, the worst of them, sooner rather than later, because we're in a crisis. A lot of Trump's executive actions are designed to address that crisis, and whether it be on the border, whether it be in spending, or whether it be in just getting political control back, power to the people over the bureaucrats that seem to have taken over much of what Washington, D.C. does. We're supposed to be governed by our elected representatives, not an unelected, unaccountable class of Mandarin bureaucrats. And that's, I believe, what's happening, and Trump rightly sees right through that. And so Judicial Watch will continue to monitor these court rulings, examine who's behind them, Like, for example, Judicial Watch in our Corruption Chronicles examines that the uncovers and reports out that the Soros operation is funding a lot of those who are challenging the Trump key administration, key EOs or administrative moves. And if you go to our website, let me go to our website. And here's the headline: a Soros-funded group sues Trump for cutting aid of another nonprofit bankrolled by the leftist billionaire. So this is the way things are now. A Soros funds a group who represents another group funded by Soros who wants money from USAID. Highlighting the need to crack down on waste on the nation's famously corrupt global aid agency, a group funded by left-wing billionaire George Soros is suing the Trump administration for freezing the funds of another nonprofit also bankrolled by Soros that receives millions of dollars from the USAID. With a massive budget of around $40 billion, the agency has for years come under fire for the outrageous programs it funds with taxpayer dollars, including hundreds of millions to promote Soros's radical globalist agenda in Latin America, a failed Clinton-backed port and power plant in Haiti, a project to help Asians learn enough English to work in offshore call centers, and to develop a Pakistani version of the iconic educational children's program Sesame Street. Other USAID allocations have paid for a condom strategy in Eswatini, bicycles for rural communities in sub-Saharan Africa, and racial equity. Vice President Harris's failed multi-million-dollar venture to curb irregular migration, remember she was the border czar, was also funded through USAID. And now, of course, whenever Trump wants to enforce the rule of law and protect taxpayers, there's always a leftist to oppose him and court. And that's their right to go to court. But there's got to be, I think, a fuller public analysis of what's happening in these courts. And that's what Judicial Watch is doing through our investigative efforts. The lawsuit that challenged USAID funding constraints was filed by a group called Public Citizen that's received $2.46 million from the Soros Open Society Foundations since 2020. Records uncovered by Judicial Watch reveal the DC-based group describes itself as a consumer advocacy organization that champions the public interest in the halls of power. And Public Citizen's been around for years. It's kind of a pillar group on the left. And sometimes they do some interesting work. But, let's be clear, Soros is a key funder and they're a creature of the left. We defend democracy, resist corporate power, and fight to ensure that government works for the people, not big corporations, according to its website. One of the plaintiffs in that lawsuit is another Soros project, hardcore left group called the Journalism Development Network, which received $4.4 million from the Soros Foundations in 2023 alone, according to records uncovered by Judicial Watch. Now, you would think the media, so if Judicial Watch was suing to stop an administration from doing something, how do you think they would characterize the media, our work? They'd say extreme right-wing group, blah, 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 right? So there have all these leftist activist groups, all these leftist unions suing to stop, sometimes unsuccessfully, to the credit of some courts, Trump's remarkable efforts to reform government in just 40 days, more or less at this point, right? And media just pretends that it's perfectly normal and these groups are all mainstream. Well, they're not. They're extremist groups from the left. This Journalism Development Network claims to support a global consortium of journalists, and they've also received $6.5 million from the State Department and USAID. So this far-left group is a joint operation of the Biden regime, USAID, State Department, and the Soros operation. They've received that money since 2020. USAID has been a disaster from administration through administration. Trump people tried to curtail it a little bit, didn't get very far. And of course, Trump came roaring back into office trying to take this on more directly. And the Journalism Development Network is the corporate name of the vehemently anti-Trump organized crime and corruption reporting project, and the two operate under the same employee identification number in official IRS records obtained by Judicial Watch. Of course, they say cutting off their money is illegal. Of course, they'd say that. The recently filed lawsuit has another plaintiff, a New York-based nonprofit called AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition, that strives for a world without AIDS. Admirable goal. This is the catch to make you understand exactly what they say, what they really want, and with global health equity. What is global health equity? Everyone gets sick and no one can be taken care of because the government's taken over and controlled medicine. That is exactly what they mean. So this great investigative work by Judicial Watch highlighting the truth behind the Soros USAID connections. And of course, as I said previously, it's not just current, it's been for years. The Soros operations have been working hand in glove with USAID and even the State Department. And so we're just getting to the tip of the iceberg in all of this. And, USAID is also heavily involved in Ukraine.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.